So this is the power of that luminosity mask, right? Because now I
Right.
can,
Okay.
so you see how I'm making a mask, right? And I can really just kind of select this sky the way I want it, right? And then come over and do a curve and just kind of darken the sky down without affecting the rest of the image.
Okay.
Now, now the other thing is that this is a mask, right? So if I hold
Right.
down Alt or Option, it's a mask. Well, now it's easy enough for me to just grab a black brush and um, and just say, oh, don't darken down this. I want this
Right.
and this to be nice and bright, right?
Mhm.
Just take care of the sky. But look at the beautiful mask it did of the sky for me, right?
Right.
So I have no problems with just kind of altering that mask very quickly to be able to just bring a little more detail back in the sky. There's only
Right.
so much I can do because there's not a lot there.
Yeah.
Um, but now we can kind of deal with kind of brightening the whole image and still keep some contrast in there and do something like
Mm.
that. And then back over here, now I can try to pull that sky back even a little bit more because this is just it's managing just that sky, right?
Okay.
So the other thing is that I can go to a specific channel with this. So
Okay.
I could go to, say, for example, the yellow channel, and let's just see what the mask looks like. So there's my yellow channel, which is kind of nice because now instead of doing a curve, I can come over here and do hue saturation. So I have the mask of just the yellows, and I'm going to just saturate the hell out of just the yellows,
Ah.
right? So now the yellows through here are looking really good. So I can go back, I may have gone too far with it a little bit, but that's always adjustable afterwards, right? So the other thing to do would be to look at the red channel.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and do that same thing. Let's look at a saturation of just the red channel and bring up some reds that are in there too, right? Now, what I really would like to do is take a look at the blue channel because the blue is a lot of these shadows and stuff down in here.
Okay.
And what I want to do is instead of going to a saturation or whatever else, I'm going to just go to curve. But I have a blue channel selected, and now I can go to my curves on just my blue panel, and I can put all of that kind of bluish tint back to that fog,
Mm.
right? So this is about the time that I start to think about, do I want to do any dodging and burning? So this is the dodge, this is the burn, this is the dodge tool. It automatically selects your brush and turns it to white. And so what I'm going to do is just reduce my opacity here. So I'm going to take my flow to like 1. I'm going to take my opacity to 20. Hey, Monica, are you here yet? And we'll get your sound down there. And what I'm going to do is just kind of tweak just some of this grasses that's in there, right? So the tops of these grasses.
Okay.
I'm just I'm hitting them. And are you there, Monica? Got your
Now
sound?
I am.
Yay.
Hi.
Hi.
We'll sort that out. It's not life threatening on your. When you open up Lightroom now, can you open up an image and it doesn't say it's corrupted?
I don't know how to make this screen smaller to get into Lightroom.
You got to go back up on top again and remember If you go to the big picture, it shows just a big person. This is multiple people. And then over here it's like smaller, and then you can shrink it down based on this. So I can shrink it.
No.
Go up on top and go up wherever your video is and check there for your settings too, because I think over here it's like hide video panel, hide floating meeting controls, you know. So that just gets rid of my meeting controls, but yours should be up.
Hold on a minute. Okay. Let's
So
try this.
for my photo and you know this representation is covering your whole screen, is what you're saying?
It's not right. It's not right this second.
Hmm?
I can try. I'm opening up Lightroom now.
Okay. All right. So in the meantime, while you're trying that, so we're looking at this image and I'm saying, all right, I really want to deal with the shadows now, right? So the shadows are down here in the darks. So if I click the shadows, you see how that highlights just the shadow areas.
Okay.
And so now I'm choosing kind of to say, look, let's deal with the shadows more here on this 4, 5, and 6.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is again go to another curve, and I'm just going to keep it in the RGB. But what I'm going to do is kind of open that curve up and put a little bit of contrast in it. So
Okay.
you know, just to contrast that curve some. Doug Hansgate, hold on one second. Hey, Miss Cheryl?
Miss
All
Cheryl.
right.
Hi, Miss Cheryl.
Yeah, well, can I call you back a little bit later? I'm in the
Tell her
middle.
hi.
I'm in the middle of a class.
Tell her hi.
Bye.
Ah, shit.
I'll talk to Miss Cheryl, but I'll tell her you said hi.
Who's Miss Cheryl? Is she from a workshop?
She's from Louisiana.
Oh, okay.
She runs the inn.
Oh, okay, nice.
So
Okay.
she's very nice, and she's always taking good care of us down there.
Good.
So I can even, you know, take and bring this in to open that up some more. And so all of a sudden our shadows are really kind of looking pretty nice through there. And we've got a little bit of blue in the clouds. Now, one of the things that I love when I do this type of thing is that I will often take, and once I get close to the end, I will do something like this. I'll say, look, let's just, first of all, just add another curve on top. And this curve, I'm just going to kind of brighten the whole thing up. And maybe just add just a touch of contrast so it doesn't go crazy on me, but I'm going to kind of do something like that. Then I'm going to take and just use this to essentially do that, you know, that shortcut Jackie command option Shift E or Control Alt Shift E. This is the same thing. All you have to do is click here, and what it does is takes all of these lower layers and combines them into one.
Okay.
So it's the same as hitting Control Alt Shift E or Command Option Shift E. And then here, what I'm going to do is, have you ever heard of Orton effects?
Yeah.
Okay, so
I think it's like it makes it kind of like a little bit blurry.
It's a fun effect that will give you basically it's like a blur of the colors.
Okay.
So this is what I did was I hit Smart Orton here in the TK actions, and Smart Orton is going to work on the whole image, and it's going to come up with, first of all, it's going to give me an adjustment, and here's my Gaussian blur. And so now I can adjust my Gaussian blur, and you see how vibrant and rich the whole thing looks, right? But then what you do is say, I'm kind of accepting it at that. And I could keep it at this, and it's certainly acceptable, but I could also just go ahead and kind of start now finding a balance between that Orton and my other layers, right? So, I didn't do a great job of burning down here. I don't love the fact that I've got this darker, and then I've got this hard band of light there. But you can see what a great job it did for the overall effect, right? It just gives me that brilliant, fall scene look, right? Almost a painterly type look. Now, the other thing that can happen here is I can go and click that again, and that will give me, again, another top layer. And Photoshop now has a couple of things that we didn't have in the past. And let me come over here. It's now sky replacement.
Yeah, okay. I was gonna ask about that if I should do something. Looks terrible.
Yeah, even with as much as we could do using
Uh-huh.
using the other technique of,
Where did you find that?
it's all under edit. If you go under edit, it's right down here under sky replacement, and it's in the
Okay.
latest version. So now I can choose skies. So I can say, look, let's find kind of a wispy sky. And you see it adds that wispy sky to it. And if I had gone back before, watch, I'll do it again. And this time what I'll do is I'll take the sky replacement, find that same wispy sky. But now once I have the sky picked, once I have picked the sky, I can now turn around and make some adjustments to that sky. So I pick that sky. And then I can adjust my fade edge. So how much of that edge is going to come down? What's the brightness of the sky look like? So that morning it was pretty bright, right? So
Right, it was all
I'm gonna
blown out.
I'm going to take and brighten it up. I'm also going to bring it to a little bit warmer sky color because
Okay.
actually I think I want to go a little cooler sky color to match this blue that I added in here, right?
Okay.
And then the scale is how big do you want this sky to be? How wispy do you want this sky to be?
Better.
So the image, is kind of here. The other thing you have is your foreground adjustments. So do you want the foreground gets adjusted based upon the sky coloring. So I could flip the sky if I wanted to make it look a little bit more directional with the wind. So you see the wind is blowing this way through the fog. The sky can't be blowing the other way unless you got a pretty drastic rip in the sky going on. And then you can output this to a new layer, right? So I can do color adjustment on the foreground if I want. This is all foreground adjustments. So do I want it really blue? Do I want it to go more golden? I want it to stay a little bit more golden for me. And then just say output it to a new layer. And because it's outputting to a new layer, I now have all of these layers that I can work with, right? So I can actually control the sky and the mask for the sky. So if it doesn't do a good job, I can fix it in here. Here's the foreground, what it's doing for the foreground of the sky. So that's the foreground layer. Here's the adjustment layer for the color. So I can actually bring the color up and you can see what it did for the color. So I could say, look, let's go back to the blue layer and maybe add more blue to the foreground. Take and pull the color from the foreground, just reset it. So those are options there. Then you have the options here, which are all affecting the sky. So this here is your brightness and contrast. So if you want the sky to be brighter, you can brighten the sky up some. You can add some contrast to it, although in my world, I think I want to take it just a little bit softer. right? And not have it so, not have it so contrasty. I can also come over and adjust my tones of it. So maybe I want to add a little more blue to that sky. And I just want to take and see what that, by adding a touch of red, I kind of go a little purpley, right? Which is more in line with what I have for the scene. So, you know, this is just the sky replacement, and it's pretty darn amazing when you have.
Yeah.
Looks like a calendar photo.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I really loved that we saw the fog and the sort of color, but I hated that huge triangle of white.
Right.
I wasn't sure, you know, it could be saved, but it kind of looks nice now.
Yeah. Hold on one second. Hey, Mara, if you want to turn the lights on in the studio, go ahead.
Hey, Jackie,
Mara?
Yes.
I think it's very unfair that we don't get to see you.
Hey, Mara? If you want to turn the lights on, go ahead.
Hi,
Okay.
you look different.
You look great, Jack. What
You look
Thank you.
great.
Thank you.
the you're not even
Did you cut your hair since the trip?
A little bit.
Yeah, it looks great.
Looks good.
Thank you.
So you can see where we're kind of going with this whole image, right?
Mhm.
You know, I think that it's gone a long way from, you know, if I were to take, and one of my favorite things to do periodically is to take and put all of these upper layers and just drop them into a group, and then
Uh-huh.
be able to do this, you know. So there's beginning.
Yeah, well, that's amazing.
Right. You know, and we both had the vision for what it potentially could be. We just, you know, our cameras are not capable of creating it. So it's up to us to kind of create that, right? And,
Right.
and if it was me, I think I probably at this point, I might say, here's some fun stuff that you can do. And most people don't think about it, but let's go over here and just do a solid color. And I'm going to go grab a total red solid color. And then I'm going to change the blend mode to soft light. I'm going to go to this mode and just invert it. And then here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just add some red into that. If you remember those brush were kind of like this very cool, you know, reddish, deep red color here on this grass. I don't even know what it was. But if we were to just kind of paint in here, right? So if I paint with white, I'll get this effect, but it kind of blends over. It kind of bleeds over onto some of my greens too. So instead of just painting with that brush, what I would do is come down and choose something different. So I might come down and choose a, yeah, let's just, you know, there's tons of brushes. My other computer has more than these, but let's just go to a, let's go to something like this.
Okay.
So what it's going to do is instead of giving me a standard kind of detail to it, I'm going to just zoom in here. I'm going to try to zoom in. There we go. And instead of giving me just that round, make certain I didn't move things here. Instead of just giving me that round brush, right? Now I can paint with, you know, I can paint with this brush here. Let's just grab it again because it's chosen to move my. So I'm going to come down here and grab that again. And then I'm going to make it smaller. And instead of just having, you know, a round brush in here, now I have this brush that I can actually stroke up, right?
Right.
Right. And it's going to give me this varied pattern
Okay.
of reds that I wasn't going to get if I was just using if I was just using a round brush, right?
Mhm.
So I find it to be much more realistic, and even for grasses in here. Now maybe my my load is a little bit much here, so I've got a load up that's pretty high, and I've got my flow up pretty high, but I can even kind of come in and do some of this red to throw that back in there, and all of that. And what I'm doing is I'm kind of clicking at the bottom of the grass and drawing up, right?
Okay.
And I'm just doing it randomly, but I'm just adding just that pop of color occasionally. And instead of doing it with a brush that's going to give me that absolute round effect, this brush is giving me, and I'll show you once we get done with the mask, this brush is giving me a totally different effect than say the round brush. And
Uh-huh.
so this is a little bit more of a painting technique, but whenever we start to reach into this level of imagery, our painting can become part of our imagery, right? So especially like over here we got this red blobby brush. Let's
Mm-hmm.
add some stuff in there, and then look at the mask that was able to you see the
Ah,
mask is
yeah,
not by any means um, a a round brush head, right?
right.
It is just that grass type effect, and I'm putting it in at a fairly heavy pace, um, but it just adds that color, that pop of color that I want down here, right?
Man, I deleted those pictures. I thought, boy, these are awful.
And see, that's one thing that I have to caution people about. I mean, I'm vicious about deleting stuff, right? I am. But I also know what I can do and what won't work, right? So for me, I looked at it and said, oh, I can work with those, right? You know, I can make that work.
Here, I thought you were going to put a horse in it.
I will eventually.
we can save this one to do that. So I'm just going to hit Command Save, and then typically when I have this many layers, because I've got this whole group here, right? So I've got quite a few layers going on here. So a lot of times what I'll do is, especially if I think I'm going to do a composite on top of it later, I may just go ahead and hit, Command Shift S or Control, Shift S. And it's saying I can't because it still hasn't done saving it. What I'm going to do is save it. And I'm just going to save. So I need to save this as I need to save this as a large document format. So, and let's just save it here. And so that's going to save it as a large document, a PSB, which is, Adobe's trying to get rid of that right now. That's one of their projects is to get rid of that PSB and that 2 gig limit on a PSD. Because more and more of our files are becoming so large that it's problematic, So it's done saving. And now I'm going to hit, Command Option or Control Option S to save it as a new document. And here's what I would do is I would just kind of put an underscore and I put V2 under and save it. And now, again, it's going to save it as a PSB. That's okay, because what I'm going to do is flatten the image. I save it first typically with all of my layers so that I know that I don't mess up. So now I have 2 very, very large files. But in the past, sometimes I flatten my image and then do a save. And then I find out that I actually didn't hold the Shift key, or I didn't have the command down, and I didn't see that it was actually saving it. So now I try to remember to do the save as first. So now it's a version 2. And then I just flatten it. And I could have If you don't have TK actions, you can come over and just go to layer and come down to the bottom and say flatten image. And then I save it again just by hitting Command S or, Control S. And let's see, why not? And I'm just going to do a Command S save again and just save it as a Photoshop file. So there's my version 2 as a PSD instead of a PSB, right? So now if I go to Lightroom and I say, look, can we in fact take this photo, right? Can we take this photo, or can I take,
I wasn't sure which one Monica would like best. But
So
Monica,
so let's use this one, right? So for years I have used texture a fair amount, like maybe 8 or 10. And now I'm kind of finding that I don't really like texture up more than maybe 3 or 4 for most images. Dehaze is actually a pretty strong contrast type adjustment, which will help for that presence, right? And then I'm going to go down to detail, just crank our detail up here. You know that you can take this to see exactly where the detail is. So I can now move it around a little bit and say how much sharpening do I want, and do I have any noise in the image. I can take a look at the noise as well, with this kind of magnification. I don't have a ton.
your color looks a lot different because like I have like these
Yeah, so what I did
color
was
profile.
So what I did was I just used the Adobe color profile.
Okay.
But I took the color temperature and changed the color.
Right.
So I think the image came out more like this for you. And
I'm not sure what I know I didn't do a white balance.
I toned it down. Now, if you wanted to do an actual white balance, her shirt is like a light blue, but it's almost white, right? So you could.
Well, it was denim actually.
You could grab that eyedropper and just go to like 100% and go right in here, and it will give you a pretty close true white balance, right? The thing with the eyedropper, you got to remember is that as you're poking around, you want to be in the shadows and you want those targets. So there's there's a 5x5 grid. You want those grids to be almost equal in color. Now it's never going to be equal because we're on denim instead of like a pure white. But on a pure white shirt, the shadow would have given you a 15 colors the same color, which is what I'm trying to suggest that we do.
Oh.
So it lowered the white balance down to 40-50 from where it was, and you can see now.
I did think the skin looked a little yellow before.
Yeah. So, and it looked a little yellow because I was using I used a yellow filter on my flash. I had a CYO gel in front of my flash because we were getting a little bit later in the day and the trees and everything. I was going to have a little bit yellowish color. So now my CYO brought my color matching to the background.
Okay.
And now once we match the whole overall scene, we have the ability to make it work the way we want. Now, that's not to say that we're going to keep it that way, but let's just say that we were to try to use this. Right? I want to open the shadows just a touch, especially with the black horse. I find that the shadows in there work a little bit nice for me. I'm going to open this up just a touch. I'm not going to do a whole lot more here in Lightroom. I'm going to jump over to Photoshop. So I'm going to hit Command E or Control E to go to Photoshop.
Okay.
And should open Photoshop. So here's my image in Photoshop, right? Now, if I wanted, let's edit this one first, just for color, right? And things like that. Now, we know that we have a ton of green around it. So if I could grab the green color or do a mask for the green color, I can do all kinds of things. So I could say, let's go and choose a curve. But on my mask, when I click on my mask, I can go to color range.
How'd you get the mask thing to go
The
there?
mask will automatically apply when I apply a curve.
Okay.
And then what I did was just click on the mask to show the mask up here. So this is my adjustment. Let me cancel out of this. This is my adjustment. This is my mask.
Okay.
Right? So here what I'm going to do is just choose color range. And I'm going to try to see what Photoshop in and of itself can do for color range. And you see that it actually did a pretty decent job of selecting those colors in and around that tree, because that's where I click, right? So my greens are pretty well selected. So I could say, okay, and now I get this mask with that lighter color green that's selected. And now when I go back to my adjustment, I could go to, for example, my blue layer, and instead of adding blue, I add yellow. And I go to my red layer, and instead of adding red, I can add some greens. And then I go to my actual green layer, and I do something like that, which is, so it takes the background and makes it a little bit more, natural to me. Now, so that's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is to simply come up to TK actions and say, look, what mask do I get when I build the greens? All right, what's on my green channel? What mask do I get? And you go, it's affecting Monica too much because Monica's pretty white. So this is a mask Monica. So where white reveals my adjustment, black conceals it. So it's not going to affect Mira, but it's going to affect you. So that's not a great choice for a channel, but I could go over to color and say, what about the greens and yellow just colors? And you say, well, that did a better job. It's selecting the greens, and it still has your face and your hair, but you see you're pretty much unselected. Once I've chosen a mask, I can now take and modify that mask. So I can change that mask slowly by just looking at the blacks or the whites. So I want to actually increase the mask by bringing more whites in. I'm just working on the mask. So this takes a little while, Monica, to get used to because the mask itself is going to be used for our adjustment, but it's just a mask, right? It's not, I'm not doing anything with this other than using this as a mask, similar to what I did with this kind of crude mask over here. And I'll show you that in a second. So
Now you could take that black brush, right, and paint her hair and face.
Yes, but what I need to do first is choose what output I want for. So all of these adjustments, which I won't get into, but all of these adjustments are ways of adjusting this mask.
Okay.
But right now what I'm going to do is just grab a curve. And so now I have this mask, and I'm going to click on option click. So I have that mask versus this mask. So you see how crude this mask is?
Uh-huh.
It's pretty much pure black.
It's either on or off.
Pure white, yeah. Whereas this mask shows me all of these beautiful details and all of these tones. So now, if I have all of those tones, I can say, look, let's brighten all the greens up, or let's darken all the greens down, right? So let's darken the greens down, and let's go ahead and go to my blue yellow, and let's kind of add a little more yellow to it. And then let's kind of go to my red channel and add some red to it to warm the whole scene up, right? So now I got like fall colors back there, but I've affected Monica with this, right? So Monica's face kind of got yellow, right? But that's easy to fix because I can go back to the mask, and I can show the mask by holding Alt or Option, click on the mask. And then I just grab a black brush using the shortcut, or I grab the brush and I make certain I'm painting with black. And all I'm going to do is just go up here and I'm going to increase my flow and say, please don't change Monica's hair color or her face or her hand or her boots. And I can be pretty crude with this, right? I don't have to be totally accurate. What I need to do is just, that's her scarf. And I'm gonna just kind of come back in with this again and just kind of do this so that and then I do that. So now my mask has Monica blocked out. Well, I may actually want to, when I look at it, I may want to actually take some of that color out of Mira too. So now I just look at it and say, let's just take, I don't care about some fringe colors, but I don't want to have her chest kind of go that color. And I'm going to just kind of quickly tone that down some. And we all know that light reflects off of the ground. So I'm not worried about getting down in here so much because I'm not worried about that light reflecting off of the ground. I'm worried about just getting kind of the top of Mira, and then go back to my colors. So now I have this beautiful color on Mira and Monica, and I'm good with the background color, right? Now, you can turn around and say things like, watch this one. This one's fun. We're going to go to our color, except now what I'm going to do is choose my yellow and red again. And you see these leaves down here that are all white. Those whites have a lot of yellow and red. So what I want to do is increase the whites on those yellows and red, and maybe even narrow it down. So let's see what happens when I narrow it down, right? So you see those leaves down there? So now what I do is go, instead of changing this as a curve or doing something else, I'm going to come here and I'm going to say, let's add a solid color. And I'm going to choose a vibrant red. And so now my mask has added that vibrant red to all of those leaves.
Wow.
But you once again say, boy, don't want it on the horse and on Monica. I want the leaves to do that. So I can come back over and repaint the mask again, right? So now I got this mask and I need to go back over here and choose to paint the, Monica back out. So I get my black brush. I get
You can leave a little red in my hair. That's okay.
All right, so I'll leave some red in your hair. And I'll take it out of here, right? I'll take it out of your shoes. And I'll leave it in the trees, right? So now we have that beautiful red tone in there. Now, it may be a little too much, but you can either reduce the opacity or you can take and change the blend mode. Change the blend mode to red or to overlay. And now I get those colors that are looking like that, right? Mm-hmm. So again, kind of really nice, pretty colors. So,
Doug,
yes.
What happened to my arm that's going up Mira's neck? It's really got super, super blue. My left arm.
Yep. Well, that would have been probably right down in here. Let's see where it is. Oh, you know why? That had to do with the flash behind you. The flash was over here. So this is the shadow of your head on your arm. All right.
But the shirt was not that color.
I understand that, but it made the
Okay.
shirt dark, a dark shadow on your shirt is going to make the blue darker color, right?
Okay.
So we can fix that, right? We can fix that pretty easily, right? And there's lots of ways to fix it. My favorite way of fixing it would be to do something like this. I would go to TK Actions and I would say frequency separation. Now, what does frequency separation do? Frequency separation gives me the ability to be able to separate the image into two separate parts. I have a texture part and I have a
Okay.
color blur part. Well, if I zoom in on the image, and let's zoom in on, so you see how it's just a shadow of your head? Do you see how that makes sense? So
Mhm.
your
Yeah.
head was being hit by the light, and this is the shadow of your head. That's your chin right there. That's your neck.
Mhm.
There's the scarf, right? There's that right there. Okay.
Mhm.
But we're going to fix that and take that shadow out.
Hmm.
So what I want to do is I want to add a different color in here, but I want the same texture of the shirt.
Okay.
Well, if I have a layer that's texture and I go and put a new layer underneath my texture layer, then I can paint on this layer with a brush and paint
But you don't
on,
have to turn it into like a clipping mask or something. It's just
no,
going to only affect that one layer.
it's only going to, I'm just painting on this layer. But what I'm going to
Okay.
do is choose my color by holding Alt or Option and choose my color over here. So pick that kind of gray color.
Okay. What you want. Oh,
All right.
it dep-
So Alt or Option gives me the eyedropper. So there's the color that I want. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and really kind of watch my flow. So I'm going to hit Shift 1 to take my flow to 10%. I'm
Okay.
going to hit 2 to take my opacity to 20%. And I'm actually going to just paint over that color.
Wow.
But as I paint over that color, you notice that the texture of the shirt is the same,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm not changing the texture of the shirt. Had I tried to
Right.
just paint with a single layer, what would have happened is the texture of the shirt would have changed.
Uh,
And then I would have had to try to do blend modes and all this other stuff to try to get it back. And here, what I do is just choose a little bit brighter color and come back in here and maybe hit the edge of that.
Yeah, but that's fine, knowing it's the shadow now.
Right.
yeah, and I
But,
think a little bit of it is nice, but it was
but
too short or
Mhm.
too
yeah, it was just a
much.
little too dark, right? So here we're able to kind of refine that a little bit and just say, okay, maybe we want, a little bit of balance in there, right? So here's before and there's after,
That's good.
Mhm.
right? So even this little spot on the
Mhm.
shirt, which would be hard to fix, I mean, we could use some other tools to get it, but now I know that all I need to do is just grab my brush.
See, I've
And
always heard of that for skin. I've never knew that you could do it for everything.
add texture is texture, right? So it matters not what the texture is, right? So all I'm doing is just changing the color, right? So I've just added that color to it. So, yes, it works. Yes, it works for skin. So we've got just a little bit of lines here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my texture layer. I'm going to grab my stamp tool. I'm going to get just a little bit bigger stamp tool. And I'm going to just choose my location. And I'm going to, whoops. And what happened there was that my stamp tool was set to all layers instead of just current layer. And so now I'm going to just do this and I'm going to just kind of clean that up.
Can you clean up that hairline?
Yep. Because it's just texture, right? So anything that is texture, I can replace and fix because it is, all I'm doing is replacing the texture, right? Now, once I replace the texture on something like the hairline still goes a little darker, right? But that's fine because I just come
That's
down
okay.
to the layer below it and I grab my brush and I grab my color of my skin that I want it to be. And now my brush is still set for that like 10%. And I'm going to just brush in here a little bit. And down here, I'm going to just brush and get rid of that. So if you look at before and after,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Um,
How about the, that cheeky line? I don't know what you call that line.
this line.
Yeah.
So this line here, this is called a marionette line. And if we want to soften that, we go back to texture. And I go back to my stamp tool. And what we're going to do is instead of, you see my flow is at like 20%. So I'm going to just keep my flow pretty low. And I'm going to just soften that marionette line. And then go back to my color with my brush. And here I want to grab a little bit bigger brush. Not quite that big. Right? Before. So the other cool part about once you have texture, texture is nothing other than texture, right? It's just a, if we were to look at the layer, it's just a 50% gray layer that has, you know, that has texture built into it, right? But if we have a layer that has just texture, I can now grab my sharpening tool and actually sharpen texture.
Jackie, did you already take that lead off?
No, I didn't. These were just raw files.
Okay.
Well, all I'm doing is kind of sharpening the texture. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So maybe were you holding the lead also, or was Lisa holding the lead? Oh, no, it's there.
It's there.
Yeah.
It's there, but it disappeared in the, um,
It's not there. You were holding her. Or the horse.
Yeah, it's going underneath the horse's chin. So Lisa was probably on the same side of you, just
Right.
behind you.
Yeah. So I don't love this.
Or she
you know.
wasn't holding it. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think she was holding.
She must not have been.
So, but now we have fixed the shadow, toned it down, you know, done a little bit of work with Monica's face. We actually sharpened some things up here. On the same texture layer, I can use that texture tool and the sharpening tool. And this is a tool that I've never, you know, did not like to use in the past because I thought it was terrible. But now, using frequency separation, the texture tool can come in really, really handy. So these are the shoes that killed Monica's feet and turned them black and blue. Did you get rid of those shoes yet, Monica?
no, nor did I send Jackie the picture I sent you.
No.
Oh, no.
Oh my God, I couldn't believe it. I'm just like,
Wow.
I was like,
And here I was trying not to whine. Here,
and
Jackie.
I looked at the picture that she sent me of her toes and I went, oh my God, that looks like skier toe, right?
Uh-huh.
Um, all the nails are black and blue and
Wow.
terrible.
Right. And like I said, I was trying not to
I
whine.
didn't think we walked that much, you know?
Right.
But so I see just a little bit of like hazing here. See that little bit of blue over the top of her head?
Uh-huh.
Don't love that, right? You
I
see
don't
that?
like that black shirt sticking out under the,
Oh,
Well, so let me go back and let's see if we can find the layer that is giving us that blue.
no, she's talking, oh, you mean on her forehead?
Yeah,
Okay.
I know what she's talking about, but
Yeah.
um,
you just got it, Jackie. You got your phone?
sending
I'm
pictures of
looking at it now.
toes around.
Haven't gotten it yet.
Sent it in Messenger.
Yeah, I've got it open. Oh, here it comes. Wow.
Mhm.
Jeepers, that's like a ballerina. Yeah.
And you really we didn't do that much walking. So those things are like
No.
deadly for you, right? So what I did
Yes.
was what
Chuck those and get the ones Jack got.
what
I
did
don't
what did
know them.
Jack get?
He had some kind of boots that she liked.
Yeah, but he said, oh, they're European. He
Oh,
wouldn't
that's right. Yeah.
even of them.
He wouldn't want?
He wouldn't tell me the name of them.
It's
You can't get those.
his secret boots. Did you see the picture that he got of Snowball though?
No. Did he post it?
No, he did not.
Oh,
How would we have seen it?
she was a pretty horse though. Or was it a male?
No, that's she's a female, but she's the alpha of the herd.
Yeah, definitely that.
Mhm.
Let me see if I can't. Your phone number is 814, Jackie, right?
Yep.
I just sent it both to both of you on Messenger.
Okay.
On Messenger.
On Messenger. No, on message. So
Okay.
your phone number.
Okay.
I don't know.
Oh, pretty. Beautiful.
Right? That's the light that I wanted you to catch.
Oh, gorgeous.
I got it. I got that photo. Good.
I haven't looked through mine, but that's gorgeous.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
the light that I was trying to
Yeah.
get for you, right?
Yeah, I know I took a
Yes.
lot in that light.
I kept trying to push
Uh-huh.
them to that, to that end
Yes.
of the pasture.
Right.
Because I knew that
Yes.
the light would give you that
Mhm.
Yep.
beautiful
Beautiful.
light behind them.
Yes.
A lot of nice color too.
Mhm.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
So we have this image. I'm going to just hit Command S to save it for a second. And then I'm going to do something else here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to flatten it. Hit Command Shift S. And let's choose my V2 again. So now I have a flat layer of it. So this is the kind of the edited version of it. Now, there's a couple of things that I don't know how much you use, Jackie, but in my world, I end up using a fair amount. One is I'm just going to duplicate the layer by hitting Control J or Command J.
Yeah, I do that.
And then I go up here to filter and I go liquefy.
Okay. I don't use that very much.
Right. But anytime we have people in
Okay.
the scene, liquefy can be really, really helpful. So there's lots of things the liquefy will do.
Okay.
And things we have to kind of be careful with if we're not, if we're not careful, we can destroy an image pretty quickly.
Okay.
So this is the push up
Uh-huh.
on the top. And so push is that if I get a big brush and I want to kind of lift to a little tuck on the tush, but you see the way that I did it, instead of going this way, which would
Okay.
have taken Mira's leg
Okay.
and made Lyra's leg wide, what I
Right.
did was kind of did a push up, right? So the leg gets stretched a little bit here along with her, her pant leg,
Okay.
but it doesn't distort the horse, right?
Okay.
It does to a certain extent, but nobody will ever see it, right?
Okay.
So then I take a bigger one and I come here and I have a couple of options here. One is this option, which is called a pucker. Now pucker basically takes and makes things smaller. So you see, every time I tap, you see how
Yeah.
everything is kind of just getting a little bit smaller. Now,
Uh-huh.
the nice part about pucker is that it does it, if I push and hold with my mouse, it'll do it very quickly. But what I want to do is just kind of, I don't mind that Mira's chest is looking a little bit bigger. I'm more concerned that the front of that jacket doesn't make Monica look heavier, right? She's working hard to not look heavy. We don't want that to look heavy. We also have this shoulder in front of us. So I go ahead and just tap that shoulder down. So every time I tap,
And you're just tapping, you're not moving that
I'm not
cursor.
clicking and dragging. All I'm doing is
Okay.
tapping. So you can turn the preview on and off, right? And you can see
Uh-huh.
what a drastic difference we've got. So now I'm going to go here and I'm going to tap some, and I made my circle bigger because I want to take the whole hips down. So I'm going to just tap. Right? And so as
Wow.
I'm doing it here on the legs, what's happening is that Mira's legs are getting a little bit wider and Monica's are getting a little bit thinner, right? So I can live with that because Mira's legs don't look bad and Monica looks better, right? So we have taken and gotten rid of all that bulk because Monica's wearing like 3 shirts or whatever. So we got rid of all of that bulk,
Right.
right? And so she looks better here, right? Now I can also, there's things that you can do, for example, that you say, sometimes you end up against something and you say, look, I don't want to move. I want this to be smaller, but I don't want to move this. Now, in this case, it doesn't really make a huge difference. So I literally could use my push tool and literally just kind of push her arm to make it a little bit tinier, right? Then take here, you got to be careful with the back of her hair because what I don't want to do is change the back of this. So I don't want the horse's rump to change.
Okay.
That's where we use the freeze tool. So the freeze tool says, for heaven's sake, whatever you do, don't adjust this. Don't change that.
Okay.
Then when I use the push tool, it locks in that. And now I can kind of, you see how I push her hair,
Yeah.
but yet the horse's rump didn't move position at all,
Okay.
right? So it's just going to stretch along this edge just a little bit, all right?
Okay.
Now, you can also come back and say, look, I want to freeze. So go back to the freeze tool and say, look, I want to freeze this, right? I want to freeze this. Don't change any of this. But let's go back to my pucker tool and let's just kind of tap a couple of times right there. Then go to my push tool. And here at the front of her thighs, I'm going to kind of just do this. And I'm pushing up a little bit and in. So this is where you got to use this, right? You need to make
Oh
certain
my.
of what's happening, right? And then to get rid of your freeze tool, you just grab the eraser to unfreeze it. So this is the freeze tool. This is the unfreeze tool. Now, the liquefy tool in the newer versions of Photoshop also gives us the fact that it will recognize people's, right? So you've got no faces detected because we only have a profile face. So it's not going to allow us to adjust the shape of the mouth and the nose and the eyes, even though if it detected a face, it would have. So we would have to,
Doug, did you take away what you did?
nope,
Oh,
I just
Okay,
turn the preview off.
okay.
So there, now Monica's gonna be like, I like that better, right? Correct, Monica?
correct.
Why see a trainer? Why go to a trainer? Spend all that time, sweat,
Mhm.
exercise, all work. You
Can
can't
we
eat,
get rid of this black
You can't.
shirt?
you can't eat what you want, you know?
Oh, no.
You know?
We
Just-
had a
The black shirt on your waist and your wrists?
No, just on my waist.
Yeah,
I kind of like it there because it's a defining area, right? But
Okay.
yeah, that doesn't bother me. If I wanted to, I could crunch it down. So just as an example to show you how to use the tool. So what I'm going to do is Command plus plus to zoom in some here. So what you would do is you would take the freeze tool, and I'm getting a smaller one, and I'm going to say, let's freeze this. So whatever you do, Photoshop, don't move this. Then I take the pucker tool or the push tool, and I get a smaller push tool, and I just go like this. I say, well, you know what I really want is this shirt to come down.
Interesting. I would have thought just fill the black with gray from the pants.
yeah, that's what I was thinking too. This is interesting. Looks like it's working nice though.
I'm going to unfreeze it.
Go back.
Let's go out and see the whole image. So now you just have just that little bit
Of black.
of black.
Okay.
I like it better like that, yeah.
Okay. So
You?
when we're all done, you just say, okay.
Okay.
And now I have, so this is my fixed layer. And this is my original layer. So now that I know that I like the fixed layer and I don't want to adjust it, I would just flatten it and get rid of that original, right? I'm going to hit Command S just so that I have saved the, I don't know why it's not wanting to do that. It should save it. So It saved it. I just don't know why they was giving me that error. I'll have to go back and look at my application here. At any rate, now I decide I put Monica in the scene. So there's a couple of ways of doing it. It's all about the selection, right? The old saying, if you can select it, you can edit it, right? You can fix
What do you
it.
mean by putting her in the scene?
I'm going to put her over here.
Oh, in the other image. Oh, perfect.
Ah.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here, and now they have this whole thing called select subject. And so instead of starting with my auto selection tool and whatever, select subject can be based on a couple of different things, but it's often based upon sharpness and whatever is in the subject. Now I still have some more I need to add to this. So I'm going to come up to my quick selection tool, and I'm going to just add to it. So I'm going to hold plus and just add to that. So I want to grab the rest of the horse. And I want to grab this foot, and I want to grab this shoe and all the way down to the toe. And I want
And
to
the
go
hook, the
back
front hooves.
Mhm.
And now the front hooves are never going to grab quickly, right, the way that I want them to, but I'm going to hold Alt or Option, and I'm going to come in here and deselect this, deselect this, deselect this, and see what it does.
Hmm.
So I've got a pretty quick selection of my subject, right? It's pretty darn fast and easy. Yes, there's still some problems, but it's pretty darn fast. So the problem areas, I can simply just go ahead and go to a lasso tool and say, look, let's kind of fix that and take that out of that selection. And let's come over in here and do that along the back of her pant leg and take that out of the selection. Let's add to the
How'd you
selection.
take it out? I saw it.
I used Option. And so here what I'm going to do is add to my selection.
Mm.
I'm going to add to my selection by holding the Shift key. All right.
Mhm.
So there's added. I'm going to subtract by holding the Option key or Alt key. To subtract that. Then what I want to do is probably go up here to Select and Mask. And Select and Mask is going to give me an actual ruby red overlay of what my selection is. And over here, I get a whole bunch of selection tools. So I still have my lasso tool that I can fix this spot over here. So I'm going to just hold Shift and say, I know I need to kind of fix this spot. And I got a little spot up in here, the eye, but I don't think that's wrong. I think that's the eyelid of the horse. And so things are looking pretty good. Maybe I want to fix this tail a little bit. So let's try something. This is the auto refine. And what it's going to do is I'm going to try to keep the plus on the tail and let it try to find the tail versus the ground. And it's not doing a great job, but it's trying, it's struggling here.
Hmm.
And it's because the ground and the tail are so close to each other, right?
Mm.
That
Mhm.
it's saying, wait a minute, I don't know if I can do that. Like, I don't like what it did there. So I just hit Command Z or Control Z to undo it. I've got the shoes I got to fix. So I'm going to hit Command plus plus. I got a little piece on the back of her shirt I'm going to fix. So rather than trying to use this to fix it, I'm going to just go ahead and grab my lasso tool, hold Shift, add that little tail of the shirt to my selection. Come down and fix her shoes. So I'm holding Shift and I'm coming over and I'm grabbing the top flap and down here. And I'm going to come over I'll fix this some once I decide that the majority of it. So there's the majority of the shoe fixed, and then I just hit my alter option to take the center of the shoelace out. And this doesn't have to be perfect, but you can see that I'm pretty close. For rough, it's not bad. And then the sole of that shoe and the tip of that shoe, the tip of that shoe. Now, for those of you that use a Wacom tablet, I'm going to push my Wacom tablet, and you'll see that I have auto scroll set as my button for my Wacom. And I'm going to kind of come up here and open up my Wacom tablet to make certain it's functioning the way it should. And you see there's an update that I didn't do. This would mean that I would have to take in, and I don't want to do that, so I'm going to it's not allowing me to scroll the way I want to, but it's probably because of that latest update I didn't get. So I'm just going to fix this last little bit here. What I normally like to do with my Wacom tablet is rotate my image so that my mouse is going left to right, not up and down. Up and down is a crude pass, whereas if I can switch this so that my hand goes left to right, it's kind of like a surgeon, right? As a surgeon, I want my cuts to be done laterally with my hand. I don't want to be cutting straight up and down. So when I cut like that, I don't have all of the abilities that I have if I were to do this horizontally instead of but we're not bad. We're close. I mean, you know, this has got to go out of there, and this is not hoof. So I won't bore you with all of, I mean, I will get kind of really detailed about this. But this is close. You see what a great job it did here. This is where this tool comes in handy. So this is the auto, this refine mode. It's the refine mask mode. So you see Monica's hair. So I'm going to keep my brush on her color of her hair, and I'm going to ask it to adjust this based upon that. And I'm going to take and choose to have a smart radius or to set my radius to like 1 pixel. And then choose this again and just kind of brush along this hair. And let's see what it does. See how it reached out into the hair?
It looks like it removed it. Oh, okay.
It
Now it's
reached
there.
out into the hair instead
Okay.
of going further in, right? I've got a little spot on the lid of his eye, so I'm going to just fix that. And, you know, I could try it over here too. So you grab this brush, and what I'm looking for is this edge, and I want to just keep my black, and you see what a nice job it did of selecting his hair.
Mhm.
Selecting the
Amazing.
tip, right? So now that I have that, I have a selection. Now, one of the things that you can do with the selection, so I have this selection done. One of the things we can do with the selection is we can shift the edge. So I'm going to shift the edge about -14, -16, something like that. What it's going to do is contract my selection a little bit. All the way around. It's going to contract my selection. Yes, I could feather it if I want, but I don't really like to feather a whole lot. You can do like a 0.3 pixel feather if you want. And then what you do is just come back over here and say, keep this as I want to output to a selection. So it now gave me a selection of Monica and Mira. And I'm going to hit Command or Control J and put that selection on her own layer. Right? Now that I have her on her own layer, excuse me. Now that I have her on her own layer, I can simply drag her from that image over to this image and drop her in. Now, you know, the scale is different, right? Not a problem
Right.
because A, I can hit Command T, or I can simply come over here. Well, this is the old version. This is TK7, so I'm going to hit Command T. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold Shift and shrink her. And I need to now zoom in a little bit. And I need to shrink her so that she is an appropriate size for my image, right? So I'm going to just stop, guess it about there. And then we're going to zoom in so we can see. So it's almost appropriate size, right? So with my V tool, I can turn around here and just move her where I want. And I'm going to hit Command T again. I'm going to make her just a little bit smaller. Not too much. Based on the grass and what I'm seeing, I want to probably do something about that range, right? So now think about the light. Where is the light coming from? The light is coming from back over my shoulder, which is a good idea, right? That's cool.
That works.
But the light is going to create a shadow on her, right? If I have this strong a light, I'm creating a shadow with the horse and her back here, and I don't have a shadow. But I do have a shadow because I hold down Command or Control, and I click here to grab this as a selection again.
Ah.
So now as a new selection, I'm going to go to a new layer, and I still have her and the horse selected. But on this new layer, what I'm going to come up here and say, Edit, Fill, and I want to fill with black. All right?
Okay.
Well, now you go, well, yeah, but wait a minute, that's not right. So I hit Command T, and first of all, I want my shadow to be behind my other layer. So I drop the shadow behind.
Okay.
And now that I have Command T, I can right click on this or come up here to transform. Let's go to transform, edit, transform. And I'm going to go to something like, first of all, I'm going to start with just distort. And what I'm going to do is do this.
Huh.
Now, you got to be able to think about foot position, and you got to think about the, you know, the whole thing, right? It's like, all right, you know, where is the sun? The sun is a little bit higher than this. So I can't necessarily do that. I can't make it too short and squat because that would mean that the sun was higher. So imagine the sun is coming back over here. So I need to kind of stretch this out a little bit and make this shadow kind of sit back up in here, and it's based upon the position of the sun. So I'm going to just now, first of all, I can hit Command H to um, I don't want to do that. I can
You
hide,
know,
I can hide my my selection, right? So I can just hit Command D to unselect, or just hit Enter and then Command D to unselect. So here's my shadow. And now take the shadow again, Command T, and now I'm not bothered by that. I'm not bothered by that that selection, right? So if my shadow is back here, which is where it should be, and I come back up and let's go ahead and edit, and I'm going to just go ahead and distort again. And this takes a little bit of practice. What I'm doing is I'm looking at the feet, right?
Okay.
I'm looking at the feet and saying, where are my feet? And so I want my feet to get to hide back up in here, and I want the shadow of Monica's shoes to kind of be there too. Then what I do is just pull this a little bit more and say, okay, now it looks terrible, but that's because I haven't gone over here yet and hit right click and say, convert to smart object. So now my shadow is a smart object. And now I'm going to come up and say, edit. I'm going to go to filter. I'm going to go to blur, and I'm going to go to Gaussian blur. And I'm going to blur my shadow. Then I can take that blur and I can change it to overlay so that it's overlaying on my image, and then reduce the opacity. So you see the shadow?
Mm-hmm.
You needed that shadow to sell the shot.
Uh-huh.
If you didn't have that shadow, the shot
Uh-huh.
is not sold, right?
hey Doug,
Yes.
Sin, wouldn't you expect, and I might be completely off the mark here, that if the sun was coming from that direction, that the tree would also be making a shadow in that same direction, and it's not.
Well, it's because the tree is very fine, and the shadow, it was a gray day, right? So it created a big huge softbox. But we lit you with a strobe. That's why we have a shadow, right? So if you had a big softbox, so when the sky turns all cloudy, it's a big softbox. A big softbox diminishes our shadows. That's why you get hardly any shadows in full sunlight or daylight on a cloudy day, which is why it's a beautiful time to shoot. So, but because I added, we can see that there's obvious specular light here. My strobe was over here. I know that I need to add that shadow. Now, the only problem that I have is a couple of things. One is that the coloration doesn't necessarily mix, and I've got this darker or this brighter face on you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a couple of things that we can do with that. One would be to come over here and just take both the shadow and my image of you, put it into a group. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the color on this group. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to come down and say, look, let's go to color balance to start with. And I'm only going to apply color balance to this group. So I can simply come over and hit this button, which says only apply this adjustment to the layer or group below it. So now I can turn around and say, let's add some more magenta to you and some more reds. And the blues, you see the blues on you, right? I want to go more towards the yellows. So here, look at you and look at how now you blend in with the color of the background,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
right? So now you don't stand out with this bluish color. You've got a little more blues and a little more reds in there that make Mira and you look like you're totally natural, except that you're not standing on the ground. So we come up to our group and I add a mask. And on this mask, I want to paint with black. And I'm going to zoom in on your shoes. And I'm going to make you go into the grass some. So I'm going to get a smaller brush. And I'm going to just paint with a small, so I got 10% flow, 20% opacity. And I'm going to kind of brush some of your shoe away so that you are actually, the grass will come through. The grass will come through because the grass is on this layer. And if I block you, and let's just go up a little faster so you can see what's happening. If I take and hide a portion of your shoe with that grass, then it appears as though you're standing in that grass.
Yeah, Mira's feet too.
Mhm.
Of course, right? So Mira is up in the air right now, right?
Right.
So all I do is just paint some of that so that Mira is now standing
In
in the
grass.
grass, right?
Mhm.
And she's a little heavier, so I'm painting a little bit more. So that her feet sink into that grass a little further.
I'm gonna get to keep this, right?
Yes, I'll let you keep this one. Now, the reason that Mira's feet are not looking like they're falling into the grass is why.
Because the grass is sloped back a little bit and where we theoretically, would you have sloped the image a little bit? Angled the image a
Yeah,
little bit?
you could take this whole thing. So you could take this whole layer, hit Command T, right?
Mhm.
And then go to this is just so you see it a little bit, right? I can take and rotate the image just a touch,
Just,
Uh-huh.
yeah,
right?
Uh-huh.
And set her down in here. And that might look a little bit better,
it does.
right?
Mhm.
Now the other thing is that we've got a little bit of issue here because her hind legs in this photo were shot with, probably f5.6. So we've got a really shallow depth of field, and then we've got all this detail back in here, right? So this is sharp and this is soft.
Mhm.
So it's a little more difficult to fix, but what I'm going to do here is I'm going to also come over here and grab a different brush.
I might have even shot that at a 2.8.
What? Yeah, maybe.
I think I even,
So,
yeah.
So it's a little bit of a a tough sell because we got such a dramatic, but most people, unless you got a pro looking at it, they're going to go, wait a minute, that was a composite, right? Because the leg is not as sharp as this grass. But what I'm going to do is just get a smaller brush here, and I'm painting with black still, and I'm going to just take my load down on this thing and my flow down. And I'm going to kind of just, again, kind of go with that tail Mira's tail is hanging there. And I'm going to kind of soften that tail up some all the way around the edges so that it blends in a little bit better, right? And even up around this, her fetlocks, just to kind of make that work a little. Now, I'll show you the final thing that I would do with this image to kind of really do the cell is kind of just soften this, but then I like this. This is all good. This is good. I'm not a problem there. What I might do is up on top is I go and take this layer and I come up and I say filter, and I'm going to come down to sharpen and do unsharp mask. And what I want to do is I want to sharpen this. I'm looking at just the leg. And so I want to sharpen this leg up as much as I can. I'm not worried about this being over sharpened. I'm sharpening just this leg.
Okay.
Because what I'm going to do then is I'm going to take this and I'm going to put a new mask on. I'm going to hold Alter Option so I get a black mask instead of a white mask. And now I'm going to just grab a brush and I'm going to brush some of that detail back in here. So now I got a brush with a decent sized flow, and I'm going to just try to sharpen that leg up some. And I can actually probably go all the way up with this and paint with white instead of black. And you see how I just added a touch of sharpening, and it just kind of helps to sell that little bit of a cheat, right?
You see the white edges of that?
Yep. So that came about because what sharpening does is sharpening takes and makes the edge more defined. So it's going to enhance the whites, and it's going to give us a sharper line between the blacks and the whites. But because I sharpened the whole thing, and now I just need to just paint that back. So what I'm doing is painting with black now and just saying, oh, I don't want you to sharpen this edge, right? I don't want you to sharpen that. So all I'm doing is saying, just give me some sharpening in and around the tail, right? But don't sharpen the edge so much that I get that white edging. And it's just enough to make that cell a little bit better, right? So now the feet look good, Monica's feet look good, Mira looks good, the scene looks good.
They do look much more planted for real now.
Yeah. And the shadow helps to sell the whole thing. Now, I still don't love the light on her because I'm getting a little too much light through here. But that's an easy enough thing to fix because mostly it's just burning. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to just grab my burn tool. I'm going to hit Shift 1 to go to 10%, and I'm going to put 20% opacity. And I'm going to just kind of soften and tone some of between and then the back side of this layer, right?
I like that.
Because all I'm doing is kind of just saying, wait a minute, there's just too much light on this edge. Now I can take and put this into the group because I don't want this necessarily over here. So I'm going to drop it right into my group, right? So I put my burn in here. And so now it's burning in here and not the whole group.
Okay.
Right? And so there's my color adjustment, and my color adjustment I can actually take and move my color adjustment into the group as well. And so that the color adjustment that I just have is now going to adjust everything in the group rather than the whole image. And then this top layer, because I've got this top layer of sharpening, right? I can actually, just take and actually drop that in the group if I wanted to too. So I could literally bring that into the group at the top. And that's only going to affect that sharpening here. So now here's before and after, right? And
I like it.
I have this, I need to hold alter options so that this is only applying that to my, this is only applying it to these layers below it. So here is before and after. So you see my color, my image is not changing,
Mhm.
right? The whole group now, Monica is just a little bit, so, you know, I've got this color adjustment here, so I can tweak that color a little bit, and so I could add just a touch more red to her, right? And just add a touch more yellow to her to kind of make her fit in with that scene a little bit more. And then I can also go over here and go to a new adjustment layer and go to a curves layer. And this curves layer, I want to make certain it's just adjusting what's below it. And I want to just tone. Why is it doing the whole image here? I want to do just you. Thank you. I want to tone. I want to tone her down. I'm going to have to pull her down onto this layer. That's all. Right there. So I just want to tone her a little bit. And I don't know why it's now jumping the whole image.
Could you just like invert the mask and then just paint on her?
Now it should
Oh.
just do her. Yeah, I could, but I should be able to control her individually, which is what I'm doing now. So you see how
Yeah.
I'm just toning her down just a
Uh-huh.
little bit because the whole scene wasn't quite that bright, right?
Right.
Right.
But the whole thing kind of works now, right?
Mhm.
Sure does. What do you think that was? Another 15 pounds?
I don't know. There's
Think so.
bulky shirts there, but now I
Another
mean,
15
Right.
pounds.
you know, but you look great, right? And
Right.
the whole scene kind of looks good.
Mhm.
And thank Jackie for taking the pictures of the scene and you. And
Thank you, Jackie.
Well, mine didn't look like that, but
of course it did. So we're gonna just save
that's
this,
great.
and we're gonna make certain that we have this one saved too, because we can use this whenever we want now, right? I'm gonna have to do a save as for whatever reason it doesn't like that. So I'm just gonna say V2 and I'm gonna say clip, right?
Yep. Oh, that's
Now,
pretty.
if it was me, you know, I'm done with my image now, right? So I keep all of my layers that I can adjust so that I could go back in here and adjust this again and take Monica in or out if I wanted to. But you see, there was quite a bit that we needed to do to sell this as a composite, right? And you know, the shadow, the coloring, the you know, dodging and burning down through here to make it all kind of work, right?
Yep.
So now what I do is I say, well, it's a horizontal image and I would like a 2048 to go to the web.
Okay, just 1 second though. Okay.
Okay.
I was just wondering, like, see those two white things like in the middle kind of keep grabbing my eye. Yeah.
This.
Are those like some type of
Yeah,
pipes
they're
or
yeah, it's just water
tree.
level
Okay.
indicators. So it's easy enough now that I have this to go back to my original image and go back over here and just grab just a quick tool.
Kind of like it better like without them.
Yeah. I'm going to get just a little bit bigger tool so I don't have to keep going over it. And then this spot kind of bothers me too.
Okay. It almost looks like ice when it was that spot on there.
I still think it looks like ice.
Yeah.
And it's just the hard reflection of that sky, right? But it's,
Uh-huh. It would have been cool to have like a little bit of frosty ice
Hmm.
on the wet weeds and stuff.
yeah. So, so now I'm going to just hit Command S again to save it again. And it's hopefully just, do you want to replace it? Yes, I want to replace it. And then my web version of this would be that I simply go back over, here and I hit vertical. It gives me the 2048 width, sharpens it all.
Don't
brings
you
it-
want horizontal?
Or this is, I'm sorry, I do want horizontal. So let's just delete this again. Thank you, Jen. I want horizontal. And then, you know, you can create your own logo, or you could put copyright or do whatever you want on it, but it's sized appropriately for your, you know, for a web image now, right?
Mhm.
What about for a
Hmm?
print image?
I'm sorry?
What
Not
about
that.
for a print?
Yeah, so what I do then is I change the name of that to underscore and I make it web, right?
That would be too small to print this one, but the full size you can.
Yeah, the full size you print, you can, but you here what we're going to do is just change this to, so what I'm going to do is just cancel this for a second. If you just hit save over here, it takes you to save for web, right?
Okay.
So it automatically converts it to JPEG. I got it at 80% quality, optimized, convert to sRGB for the web. You see it's 2048 by 1397.
Okay.
Say save. It's going to ask you where you want to save it. So in my world, I'm saving it under tablet, which is these are all ones that would normally go to my phone. So, but here I'm just going to save it to theirs because I know where it is then. And I'm just going to make it web and save it as a JPEG. And then I can simply go to my images now. I can go to here to Finder. And I can go up here to go to, I gotta go to my computer because, and I'm going to go to here. I'm going to go to users. I'm going to go to Doug. I'm going to go to pictures, tablet, horses. Somewhere in here. There, right? And then I can send it via email.
Cool.
So
Cool.
let's go to here. I don't need to save the PSD, and this should already be saved. And this one I'm going to just do another thing because it doesn't like me. So I'm doing another PSD just to make certain I have it. Command W to close it, and let's go back over to Lightroom and look at something else.
I
Thanks
sent
for
you
the time.
some. That was awesome. I sent you some in Dropbox too.
Okay. So this is one that we just, did we do the high key shot last week? I forgot.
Yeah.
We did a high key shot.
I think you had a high key horse, didn't you, Monica?
I didn't have a high key horse, no.
Oh, maybe you did one of yours, Doug.
Maybe we'll do this one real quick just so that you have it, right? So the beautiful part of this is that as long as this is sharp, I can open my shadows up a little bit, add some contrast. I want to kind of open the blacks just a touch here in Lightroom. This is all about kind of finding a balance that I'm going to run to Photoshop with, right? And then because I have Lightroom open, it's easy for me to grab an adjustment brush and do this first adjustment in Lightroom. So I grab my auto mask, I get a big brush, and what I'm going to do is just start to brush. I don't want to darken, I want to brighten. And my flow is obviously way down. So I'm going to take my flow up. I'm going to reduce my feather some, but I'm going to keep my density and my flow all the way up. What I'm trying to do is be careful in here that I don't touch that hair.
Right.
So, you know, the auto mask is really good, but it also is reliant on me touching touching exactly what I want to mask, right? And so I don't like either one of those adjustments. And I'm going to just erase it over here a little bit because I'd rather fix it. If it can't do it, I'd rather fix it in Photoshop
Oh,
than have it miss, right?
okay.
So
Something I think I discovered is that if you're going to erase it, you need to erase it right then. If I try to erase something way afterwards without going way back to it in the history, you can't do it. Did that make sense?
you know, in
No,
Lightroom, man,
I think erase is only your last move.
no, it's
Oh.
because this is an adjustment brush. So as long as I select that adjustment brush, it matters not
Okay.
when I go to erase from that adjustment brush. So, you know, don't love the fact that I have, you know, I've kind of eliminated some whiskers here. So I'm going to kind of just fix that. And then I'm just going to make certain that I don't lose any detail down in here, right? So, but now that I have the rest of it selected, I can really just kind of blow it right out to white.
Okay.
Right? And then don't worry. Now I can kind of adjust, let's just close this for a second. So I've blown out all of the background. And now I can say, look, now that I have the background kind of go on, maybe I really want to try to bring this contrast up even more. And maybe I don't want to take and push that shadows up as much. And I want to kind of just find this point in here that just kind of works for my whole thought process. So kind of something like that. Then this is where I'm going to take, and I'm not going to add any texture, clarity, or dehaze here. I'm going to let my camera stand on its own. But I will probably add just a touch of sharpening to see if I can use that sharpening to my benefit. Hit Command E to send it over to Photoshop. Hello, Photoshop. So I'm almost there. I really just have this to kind of deal with and this to deal with, right? So let's deal with those first. So if I go ahead and go ahead and just come back up here and use my starting point of select a subject, right? Now, select subject does a decent job, but you see it didn't catch all of this. Now,
Right.
one of the other options would be to say select focus area. And you see what it's going to do is it's going to try to determine what part of this image is totally in focus.
Oh, I've never seen that before.
Yep. This is fairly new too. But what it's going to do is it's going to give me a selection based upon a 3-pixel focus area. Now I
Okay.
can reduce that, but you see how it kind of it changed my selection, right? You see it kind of came in here, and I said, well, let's go ahead and you see when I do that, now all of a
Yeah.
sudden it says the horse's mouth is not in focus. So let's go the other
Huh.
way. And let's see what it does as far as, so you see now all of this is in focus, this is in focus, right? And I'm going to just go ahead and output this to a selection. And the reason I'm going to output it to a selection is that I want to be able to use select and mask again. So I come up to select and I go to select and mask. And here you see the selection, it's like it's not great in here. It's like the horse's hair is terrible. But now I can use this whole choice of my smart radius and turn this to like 1 pixel, and then come over and keep my plus sign on the end of that mane and just start to tap it. It's getting confused because I have all of that white in the background,
Okay.
right? So all of that bright white, it's like, wait a minute, what do you really want here, right?
Huh.
So this is where it's getting confused. So I'm having to kind of teach it a couple of times here and say, I really want just the bright white, but then it's going to jump out here and say, well, yeah, but don't you want this out here? So you see how it's getting a softer pink. It's not the bright pink
Right.
it was. That means that
Uh-huh.
it's actually selecting those hairs.
Okay.
So once I get it close, I can come down here and just say I want to hold Alt or Option and say just erase this as part of that selection. I guess it'll take a second. I wanted to hold Option instead of so when it goes to that lightish color pink,
Mm-hmm.
what it's actually doing is it's actually saying, oh, I'll partially select that, which is really all I want, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't need it fully selected. I just need it partially selected.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you have to play with these. You know, on the selections are everything, right? It's like, you know, what do I want? And I'm not even going to worry about this, and I'll show you why, because my selection, now I'm going to come up here, and so I've got this whole section between his head and the braid. Well, you can come back up to my quick selection tool, get a little bit bigger tool, come in here and hold Alt or Option to reverse it, and go ahead and just tap in there.
Wow.
And that's actually doing a better job down here than my adjustment. So we're going to try tapping this in here and see what it does. You see how nice of a selection it did?
Yeah. Yeah, that is kind of amazing.
Right. And so, you know, sometimes it's better to do one way or another. I want to keep some of this here, and I want to kind of fix that. Now under here, I kind of have the same issue, but let's go ahead and try that same selection tool. So what I'm going to do is just choose to select here and add it to my selection, and choose to negative select there, negative select there, negative select here. So you notice that I'm carefully putting my negative or positive sign in a open spot, because right now I'm reversing, right? I'm deselecting. So I want my selection to and so I got this black right here. So I want to add that black, and I'm going to click on just that black. And I'm being very careful about where I click on that black so that it actually finds just the black for me. And then here for that, I know it's not going to get this without just going to my lasso tool. So I'm going to hold Shift and come in and select that. And fix this down here. For this high key look, the beautiful part about it is you don't have to be totally crazy about your selection, because the fact is we're going to blow out part of the edges, right?
Okay.
So when I blow out the edges, it'll look like the light is blowing out behind them, and which is exactly what happened, right? So this selection doesn't look bad. I'm going to just probably go ahead and shift the edge again, a little bit negative, and then just say okay. And then, because that's not really the selection I want, I really want the inverse of that. So I'm going to go to a new layer, and then I'm going to come up and I can either say select and inverse, or I can just hit Shift Command I or Shift Control I, inverse my selection. So now I have this outside selected, my horse is not selected. So now all I do is take a brush and I come over and hit this to get this color. And I'm going to just brush through here and hey, Deli, no. Deli's trying to get me to take her somewhere.
Oh,
So she comes over and puts her head right underneath my arm and lifts it up in the air.
yeah. My cat will do that for me to pet her. You know, she'll
Mm-hmm.
move my hand on her.
So I'm kind of just kind of coming in here and painting with this white, and I can kind of increase the flow here because and the opacity so we can get this done a little bit faster. But you see what it's doing is now it's filling in the white wherever I did not have the selection. I can get a real big brush because it matters not at this point whether I have the whole image or not. I can kind of come around and just kind of do this whole thing and just paint in here wherever I want. Then take and just hit Command D to deselect. Now the fun part about this is that I can go back over to this layer, hit Command and select again, and you see it's got my horse selected. It also has all of this up here selected or not selected, so I really kind of need to add to my selection. So Shift and add this to the selection up here. And it'll keep this horse selected the way it was. It should be. I'm just going to add to it. And if that doesn't work, just go to the lasso tool. Sometimes you have to go to this layer to grab it because there's nothing there on that other layer. And so now I have that inverse selection. I can select again. I can select the inverse of that selection. Go back to this layer and copy that onto its own layer. So I hit Command J. So now I have a horse sitting on top of just the horse sitting on top of that layer. And if I bring him to the top, now I can actually mask off parts of this horse. So I put in a mask over here, and now I start to work with my black. And now I can work on this horse and just start to feather some of this in. So now is when I want to go back to my 10% and maybe 30%. I want to get a smaller brush and I want to start to hide some of this selection. Maybe we can go a little bit higher on my flows just so you can see it quicker. And what I'm doing now is basically hiding this selection. So I can turn my lower layer off. I could put a full layer of white underneath it if I want. So I put a new layer and say Edit Fill. And just fill with white. And so now this matters not. And I just come back up to this layer and I work on this mask. And all I do is just kind of fine tune this mask a little bit by painting on that mask and getting, that's why I said the selection didn't need to be great, right? And I spent all that time on the selection, and I'm gonna just kind of paint over it and hide what I don't want. So there's little stuff in here that I don't want. There's this down here, which I don't want. And let's just go up here a little bit faster so I can do this quickly. So I spent a lot of time on that selection, but in reality, I didn't need to spend that amount of time. But I wanted to show you that that is as much as we thought we needed that really accurate selection, we don't, because, whoops, this is all about just getting this to blow out a little bit. And down in here, what I would do is instead of using my solid brush like we did before, I'm going to come down and grab something else. Let me go over here. I'm not going to go to the special effects, but I'm going to go down here to, well, maybe I'll open special effects. Let's kind of go to this concept brush again. I like this better for it. What I'm looking for is something that's going to give me kind of a variation, right?
Okay, yeah.
And so here I'm going to paint with black, and I'm going to just get a smaller brush, and I'm going to kind of just paint in here with the strength of this brush. And oh, it's a specialty brush, so it's giving me grief. I'm going to just kind of go in here and do this with a regular brush. I have a whole series of brushes that I've made specifically for hair and specifically for things like this. If you want, I'll send you some brushes. But you want to just kind of soften this up. Soften this transition. And even if you're just doing this with a round brush,
Mhm.
you don't want to get the rain, but you want to just kind of soften this feel up here.
Mhm.
And I want to get rid of that. That was a little selected spot that was
Okay.
there.
Beautiful. I couldn't do it, but it's beautiful.
You can do it. So
Hopefully we can.
you can do
Jack,
that.
is that a
Okay.
picture of, is that a reflection of Jackie in her eyeball?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do now is we're going to kind of adjust and tweak
Oh, I
this.
can use that as my self-portrait.
That's right.
Yep.
So now I'm going to just take and kind of tweak this a little bit. And you see when I bring the highlights up, you see how it kind of blows out the edges some, which is kind of what I'm looking for anyway, right? I want those edges to be blown out. So I don't care about this getting blown out because that's what the strong light will do. And then I come back over in here and I do a contrast. I'm going to add some more contrast to it, and I'm going to maybe brighten the whole image a little bit. And you see how this is kind of coming out. If I want to, I could go and do a luminosity mask and just get the lower portions of the horse's head and put a curve just on that. And you see what that'll do is just kind of bring some of that. But again, make certain that you add contrast to whatever you're doing there, right? Because if you lose the contrast in this image, you are in kind of la la land, right? The other thing we have is that we also have over here on this curves layer is I have too much blue from the sky pulling in, right?
Right.
So I want to take that blue out of it. You see how I just pulled that blue? You see the difference that made now? Look at before. You see all that blue?
Uh-huh.
Blue was because the reflection of everything that the blue sky overhead coming in and hitting the top of him. And I don't want that blue showing. So I just go
It
to
looks
the
a
blue.
little pinky though.
So if it's a little pinky, watch, we just go to here and just pull the blues a little bit more, then go back to the red layer and pull some of the reds and add some greens instead of going pink. Right? So we got that afternoon glow behind him, but we don't have that. So I'm going to just kind of go to about there, and I'm going to go to the greens, and I'm going to pull some yellows instead of going to the greens or the reds. I'm going to kind of just pull that spot to a spot that I like. And again, kind of going back to the blues and deciding that maybe I need to be just down in here in the blues. Right. So yes, there's always some tweaking that goes on. For me, I want to go back to the RGB, and the RGB I want to take and I want to add a little more contrast to it.
Nice.
You know, the black horses are the most difficult to try to get this balance, right?
Mhm.
You know, we also want to kind of fix this whole thing because it's like we don't need that. What we really want is a horse's head, right?
Mhm.
Like I just have to laugh. There's this guy in Buffalo here that, you know, is trying to make a name as the headshot photographer.
Uh-huh.
And so he's posting all these images on LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook as great headshots, right? I did not see one single headshot. He's got shots from like waist up, right?
Ah,
Ah.
I'm like, that's not a headshot, right? You know,
Uh-huh.
not a headshot. You can do what you want, but that's not a headshot. So I'm going to go here and go to filter, and I'm going to go to sharpen. I'm going to go to unsharp mask. And you see what I did there was just punch kind of this crazy detail up, right? So now you got this beautiful detail that we were lacking just a little while ago. And that's why, you know, when I spent all that time to get that hairs and stuff, when I blow this out, that matters not, right?
Mhm.
Because I know that I'm going to have this really high key look, and it's just going to go away. You can sometimes
So
people
why
prefer,
bother with all that hair stuff?
well, you do because it's the right thing to do. Try to get a good selection. So I'm going to convert this layer to a smart object. And the reason I'm going to convert it to a smart object is sometimes at this point, we want to actually go back to Photoshop. And what I need to do is let's go back one layer. You see, I must have brushed that nick in his nose. I'm trying to see where it is. So it's in a layer down here somewhere. So I'm going to take this layer, which has got his nose, and I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to just use my clone stamp tool. And I'm going to get in closer. And you see that's an obvious brush, right? So, you know, somewhere along the way I brushed that, and whether it's here, which it could be, let's just go and grab my brush and choose to paint white instead. And let's see if that brings it back. And if not, it was before that I messed that up, right? So it's before that I messed that up. So we're gonna just grab the stamp tool and fix it. Oh no, it's actually being blocked here on that layer. Maybe it doesn't, you know. There it is.
Ah,
So I'm gonna come here and just kind of fix that nose a little bit. Because it was gonna drive me crazy, and I couldn't do that. So now I'm going to come back up to this layer. I'm going to delete that layer. I'm going to make a brand new layer at the top. I'm going to come back up and go to filter, sharpen, unsharp mask, sharpen everything back up again. Say okay. And then if I need to, like looks like a little piece of yellow there,
mhm.
right? On this layer, I can get rid of that too,
Okay.
right? I can fix this little white spot, you know, go around and fix any little sensor stuff that's going on, or this little, you know, I think.
I took a fly off her head in one picture.
Yeah.
Is that Jackie in her eyeball?
It is. Look at the shadow. You're standing on top, and
Mm-hmm.
kind of cool. So,
Mhm.
so there's that. Now I'm going to go back over here and right click on it and say convert to smart object. And the reason that I convert to smart object again is that sometimes it's easier to go right back over to basically Lightroom, except that I'm going to choose camera raw. And camera raw is is the same as Lightroom, right? So
Mhm.
now I can go back over here and say, look, maybe I want to open the shadows up a little bit more, but I'd like to make the blacks a little more intense. And in the meantime, let's take the highlights and cut the highlights down just a little bit. And then at the same time, let's add just a touch more clarity. And
Doug, why not just go back to Lightroom to do it?
well, you can't, you could have saved it. You could have saved it in, I could have saved it and then open it up in Lightroom again and done this and saved it as a new version. But by using smart objects, I can essentially go to Camera Raw, which is the same engine as Lightroom. It just has a little bit different look. And it gives me the same capabilities, but it's all part of my Photoshop file. So I don't have to make a separate file, right? So this is all incorporated into that separate file. And so what I'm doing is just kind of balancing out exactly where I want the contrast to be now and what I want to happen. The other thing is that now that I'm back over here, if I look at if I come back down here to HSL, let's see, where is let's go to basic. Let's make certain that they're all calibration. I can actually just come down to calibration and pull some of the reds out of it. And let's go to saturation, and I'm going to pull some of the reds. So some people prefer to work in Lightroom, you know, for doing some of this color work because it's just sliders versus some of the intricacies of Photoshop. Now, some people also would necessarily not like this pink up here, right? So that's easy enough to fix in Lightroom or Adobe Camera Raw because they're the same things. So what I do is come in here and say, there's my adjustment brush. I'm going to get just a little bit bigger brush. I'm going to keep it to this pink, and I'm going to turn on my masking, and I want to turn mask on, and let's just go here, and I want to just select that, right? Now, I'm going to just erase this edge because this edge just blew over a little bit. And go back to my mask, and I'm going to get a smaller mask or a smaller brush. And I want to just touch this spot down here. So those are the two spots that kind of turn pinky. So I'm going to turn the mask off. And now what I'm going to do is I want to basically come here and go down to saturation and desaturate that area. And you see it also has a little bit of coloration to it. So I can go ahead and change the hue of that one way or another. So I'm going to go back over here and kind of desaturate that pink a little bit, just so that that pink isn't there. And let's go back to my adjustments. And let's look at, so
What if you
before,
increase the black there?
and so here's before and after. Well, I could also, if I wanted to do that, I could go back to this pin and not necessarily increase the black, but just reduce the exposure.
Mhm.
Right. And then,
Yeah.
you know, I could make it a little bit blacker by going here, but it's really about that exposure more than anything, right? And take the contrast down a little bit. But here is before and after with just a couple of essentially Lightroom edits. So
That
the
is-
nice part about this is that I say, okay, and it comes back in as a separate layer
Okay.
in Photoshop. Now, I don't know if Jackie, if you ever used Smart Objects and used ACR and
I do use ACR and I've used smart objects, although I don't think I've really created new smart objects. Not exactly sure when that shows up.
well, if you have this little tiny insignia on the bottom of this image, can you see it?
Okay, yeah,
Then it's a smart object.
okay,
And you see, because it's a smart object, I can always go back just by double clicking here. It opens up ACR and gives me my ACR back again to do whatever I want. So if I want to go
Okay.
back to the brush and make an adjustment on that brush, I now have all of the adjustments that I did with that brush are now available to me again. So it matters. It's a nice way to bounce back and forth, right? It's just
Yeah.
a very, very nice way to bounce back and forth. To me, to finish the image up, I'm going to hit and go up here and do some dodging. So I put a dodge layer on it, which is 50% gray. I'm going to paint with a white brush on this gray layer. And when I paint with a white brush on that gray layer, what it's going to do is give me, it's going to give me that, that dodging. So you can see how I can simply just kind of come in here and take this line,
yeah,
take that lip. Get a bigger brush. And then at the same time, come back over here and do a burn, which changes my brush to black on a 50% layer. And then just what you want to do is think about, if you want to bring out detail, black on the other side of where there's white
mm-hmm,
will bring out any kind of detail that you want. So you want detail back in that mouth, you know, under this jaw.
that helps a lot.
Mhm.
So I put, a lot of times when I do those, I put those in its own layer. I just call this dodge and burn.
You think there's too much around the cheek? Too much white?
If there is, so the nice part about, so this is the dodge, and you say it's a little bit too bright here, right? All you need to do is grab this brush in TK Actions, which is 50% gray. And remember, this layer is 50% gray.
What's the green brush next to it?
It gives you the ability to pick your color.
Oh, okay, all right. So you have 100% black, 100% white, 50% gray, and then pick your color.
Right. So I kind of like what it did. I even like this, you know, this, because this is always a big muscular shadow. It's maybe a little bit too much down here, so I can use my 50% gray brush to kind of diminish that just a touch.
She's
But
so
I
beautiful.
think it's nice, right? And you know, you got to remember, from my perspective, a horse owner is not getting this image without spending a significant amount of money with me, right? You know, this is not a freebie image, because it does take some time to do this, right? But it
Right.
will,
So how much would this be?
well, you know, a a typically like a 16 by 20 of this would be probably $289, right?
I would have thought you would have said more.
Yeah. Well, what I really want to sell them is my $600, 3 by 4 foot, right? So,
Right.
so, what I would try to do is to show them that, right? Is show them what it would look like in their barn if it was 3 foot by 4 foot, right? Or if it was in their home or, wherever, right? Their office. Most horse owners you got a significant investment in this, right? But that's just for the print. Remember that I've charged them already to shoot the photo, right? So that's on top of the print.
What did Rick say?
Oh,
About-
he was out of town. He's going out of town this weekend again for that big carriage auction in Pennsylvania. So I probably won't talk to him until next week. Everybody's happy. They're all looking at the images and trying to decide what's what. But this is in my mind, this is an image that we can do at any barn, right? This was no big thing, right, Jack? I mean, you bring a horse.
Right.
Bring a horse to a doorway and let them keep their head into the shade and let the sun hit them hard on the backside, and you're done.
I don't like this as well as the capture that you had, but
Well,
still nice to-
everything is a different. Everybody's a little
Uh-huh.
different on stuff. So,
What did you say, Jack?
I'm not that impressed with this one. I liked his last week.
oh, this is the one I did today.
Oh,
I did this for Monica.
that's a sweet.
Yeah.
I did that one for Monica.
He looks so fuzzy.
He is fuzzy.
Yeah. Ah,
I like that one.
uh-huh.
So I sent you my chicken.
I like that a lot too.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, I like this one too. It's I kind of debate on this one a little bit just because of the composition, whether I want to change and add a little more white down here, but again, if you take this image and you do what we did last week to kind of finish things, now kind of review it. Remember, I'm going to double click on my background just so that it becomes a layer 0. And I'm going to create a new layer. Then I'm going to come up and say image canvas size. I'm going to look at my dimensions basically based on inches. So I'm a 9 by 12 right now at 300 DPI, I think. So what I'm going to do is just add, say, 3 inches in either direction. It adds those 3 inches. I come up and I say edit fill. I'm going to fill with white. I'm going to drag it below my layer 0. Then I'm going to point to layer 0 and just come over here to this FX, special effects. And I'm going to come down here and I'm going to say, first of all, I want a stroke. And I want my stroke to be maybe 4 pixels. And then I can say, well, do I want to bevel and emboss it? And I want to make it so that it's inside. But I want to change the opacity, and I want to make it a little bit smaller. And I'll probably want to, this is on the bevel and emboss. Here I want the inner bevel, and this is the size. And this is the soften. I don't really want to soften this. I want to kind of keep it at a pretty harsh level. All right. And then multiply is fine. The technique, I want to go chisel hard. And I want to make it smaller, yeah. And I want it to go down. So I want it to drop down into my frame. So that's the down portion of it. And then on my stroke, I need to take and turn my stroke to outside because my bevel is on the inside, right? So I need to have that stroke. If I'm going to do the stroke there, I need to do it inside. So, and this I'm going to change the opacity up and I'm going to bring it down. And I'm just going to put the little fine stroke on the outside. And then on this, I want to change the position to down here so that it gives me that stroke, that bevel down on the bottom.
Hmm.
So this is what I would show to my client, right?
Uh-huh.
Is this rather than just the plain image. I would show them how it would look framed, right? And the advantage of doing this is that you can always go back to this layer and come back up here and say image canvas size and add another, say, 2 inches, right? So I go back to inches and I can say, let's just add 1.5 more inches to the top and 1.5 on the bottom. And then just go back up and fill again, say edit fill. And we go to white. And then go to center. So that's more of where I would normally want my borders.
Uh-huh.
So there's
Hey Doug, do you weight the bottom?
not normally, but you can. So so what Monica is saying is, can I put more down on the bottom so that I could sign it, right? And so you just come back up and you say image, canvas size, just change this position to only add to the bottom. So
Uh-huh.
now I'm going to go to inches and I'm going to add another inch to the bottom.
Mhm.
And that added that full inch to the bottom. Now, here's the fun part is that, and again, just fill that. So I don't know how much you've ever studied mounting and doing stuff like that, but the reason a frame is supposed to draw your attention,
Mhm.
but once you get closer to the image, the frame is supposed to disappear from your purview. You're not supposed to be looking at the frame anymore. You're supposed to look at the artwork.
Okay.
So typically when we do this in a gallery mat is different than a normal mat. So if you're hanging it in your home, we would maybe do a 2 or 3 inch mat, depending on the size of the image, right? So if this was a 16 by 20, a 3-inch mat would be normal. In a gallery wrap is something more like this. So a gallery wrap would turn this, and I'm going to go to inches, and I'm going to add another probably 3. And then I'm going to say edit fill. So look at the difference between those two options, right?
Mhm.
This is what we would call a museum mount. A museum mount always has, on a mat, might have 4, 5, 6 inches of mat around your original piece.
Okay.
And the reason is that once I'm drawn to the frame and to the subject and I start to walk in, I want my mind to go to my image and not be distracted by anything else. A fancy gold frame, 3-inch wide wood frame with, hand carvings and all. None of that matters. What goes to the artwork. So when
Okay.
you see pieces that are original oils, original, very expensive artworks, they're often framed with a very, very large mat so that you are looking more at the piece.
Mm,
Now, I've never tried this in image competition.
mhm.
Would be interested to see how many judges actually recognize this as a museum mount and would say, oh my God, that's just spectacular because it takes your eye to the subject, right?
I like it so much better.
I do too. To me, if you come into
Yeah.
my studio, you'll see that like all of my old vintage art prints that are in the hallway are all done with museum mounts.
Ah,
Um, and but I would love to see. I never actually challenged a judge by giving them a print like this.
yeah,
Right?
let me know if you ever do that. I'd be interested.
Becky, no, you do it
Take one of yours and submit it.
Uh-huh.
and do it like this and see what happens.
Huh.
I mean, you know, if even if they judge it poorly, it'd be an interesting thought process, right?
Right,
You know,
Yeah, who cares?
right. Right.
cool. All right. So, what other questions do we have? Oh, I know what we do. We have to do. I'm sorry. I'm going to save this one though. We have this to do. Let's see if I can find the number. We might as well use one of yours, Jackie. I know you gave me some.
Well, use one of mine.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what I want to do is get rid of. We finally got one with her ear up. Yay! So I'm gonna just open this up for a second. Mira was not pleased with Becca
No,
because Becca
was anxious.
anxious. So you notice what I did here was I grabbed my angle tool
Yeah.
and I chose a tree because trees grow vertical.
It's a dumb, really dumb question. How do you make the circle change positions?
You use the Shift and O.
So you use the Alt and O to
No,
get,
no Alt and O, just Shift and O. Just hitting O changes the type of overlay. Just hitting O. Shift and O changes the position of so this is just overlays, right? But even like with this overlay, which is your diagonal thirds, I can hold Shift and change it, right?
Mhm.
But if I go to the Fibonacci and I hold Shift and hit O, I change my position.
Okay.
Now, unfortunately, I can't rotate this enough to actually have my trees without cutting off Becca's foot. So,
Can you like add canvas there? And
you know, I can in Photoshop, I could add some canvas and do some, you know, stuff that way. But why is it doing my proof copy? I've up here, I have apparently added proof copy to this. And I don't want to.
You know, I liked this series better than either one of the dresses.
Did you?
I thought
Yeah.
she looks kind of stiff in them. She's very angular.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, she's used to more, when she works with me, she's used to doing more fashion. And
Uh-huh.
if I pose her and tell her what I want, she will give me exactly the pose I want. But she's
Uh-huh.
used to doing more angular fashion type poses, right?
Okay.
But what I really wanted to show you here was the thought process of getting rid of this rein, right? Now,
Mhm.
some of it can be done in Lightroom. You know, Lightroom is gotten much better. You know, as long as there is no contact with. Um, so I got a little too close to his leg, her leg. So as long as there's no contact, I can do stuff like this, and it will do just fine. You know, normally I can actually just kind of do some stuff there and get rid of some of it with just using Lightroom to do it, right? Where the real problem falls in is when we start to get in on the edges, right? Then Lightroom just fails miserably. So we're gonna just go over to Photoshop. Now, in the past, I would have said you have to do this all with clone stamp tools. But now I'm going to say that I'm going to hit Command J to make this a new layer. And now I'm going to say that this has gotten so good because of content aware. So we're using this as a content aware brush, right? So this brush is my spot healing brush, and all I'm going to do is just brush this. And I'm going to be particular about kind of where I brush it, but you'll see that spot healing, even if I brush straight across here, right, it will do a pretty good job of choosing um, the right replacement.
Hmm.
Tell
Yeah.
me again what you did, please.
So all I'm doing is trying to get rid of the rope, right? So I'm
Right, but
using my spot healing brush, and I'm just kind of, you got to give it, you have to go beyond the rope. So don't just highlight the rope. You got to go beyond the rope. If you go beyond the rope and give this brush the chance to figure out what it is you want to change, it does a pretty darn good job. Now, I still have some cleanup to do here. It missed it a little bit, but it did a pretty good job. And the same here, as long as I go beyond the rope, make certain that you go beyond the rope, it'll do a pretty decent job of getting rid
wow.
of that
Yeah,
lead.
that's kind of amazing. Uh-huh.
And up in here, the same thing is I wouldn't try that edge, but I will go to here. And then typically what I will do is then do either side of the rope, or either side of, say, this lead rope, and then I will do the lead rope itself. And it will oftentimes do a pretty decent job of fixing it. And it got a
Really
little soft.
good.
I got a little soft in here, so I'm going to fix that otherwise. But watch up in here. So
Okay.
I'm going to take and make certain that my and for whatever reason, I have my,
I wish I would have stopped down a little bit. I mean, look at how out of focus even her second hand looks.
yeah. So you see, it did a pretty decent job of getting rid of that,
Uh-huh.
right? And then the same thing here, I'm going to just kind of come up and watch, see what it does. And so
Oh,
pretty good right there, right?
Yep.
I just got to fix a couple things here. And that's
Mhm.
where I'm going to just come back to my clone stamp tool. I'm going to say current layer, right? And my clone stamp tool, I'm going to keep my flow pretty low. I'm going to choose this layer. And what I'm going to do is just get a little bit bigger brush because I wanted to incorporate this whole lead. And I want to just kind of, I don't care if it changes the position of it, I want it to kind of come up. And then down here, if you want to change your the angle, so if I start to do this, watch what will happen is that all of a sudden the angle changes, right?
Right.
So what you do is you go to your stamp tools,
Ah, I never knew that. I've always wanted to do that. Change the
and,
angle.
and this is the angle right here.
Okay.
So I just take the angle and say, look, rotate my stamp tool. Every time I stamp, I want to rotate my stamp tool and I want it to go to, say, 5 degrees off of what I want to the plus. So now I get a small stamp tool, and I come in here and I choose just that angle. But when I start to stamp, it's adding 5 degrees to my stamp.
Yeah, big difference.
And then here, if I wanted it to go straight, I mean, I can come here and just choose this edge and then take this angle off, right? And so sometimes I find it easier to just sweep it and then go to 0. But I'm going to go here and I'm going to just kind of pull this straight up to there. And
Mhm.
then here I'm going to pull the same side on this side. So instead of going on the whole thing, I'm doing either side and getting that lead to fit there. Then it makes a little soft in here. So I'm going to just go ahead and stretch some of this down. So I'm going to get just a little bit bigger, and I'm going to take my flow up to, like, say 40. And I'm going to just click here, and I'm going to just add some of this back in so that that doesn't do that. Now my lead needs to change a little bit, right? Because of the angle of this lead. So if I start here, it may not actually fit, although it didn't do too bad, right? It's not too bad of a lead fit, right? Here, if I wanted to follow this lead through, I
Mhm.
would have to change this angle, right? So I'm going to take this angle to a negative, say 5 or 6, and then hit my option key and kind of watch it go. See, it's too much, right? It angled down too fast.
Mhm.
So I need to just take this back up. And then, but yeah, that angle on the clone stamp tool is kind of fun, right? Because it will help you to sort things out. So like here, what I did was I got to this point fine, and then I needed to actually take this angle back up again. And this is where you want to decide how crazy you want to be, right? How crazy of a photographer do you want to be? Over here, I'm going to just get a small one, and I'm going to just clone. I want this to go back to 0, so I just hit 0 and hit enter. And then over here, I want to just fix this little spot.
How did you open up that clone source?
It's if it isn't, it is clone source adjustment tool, and if you don't have it, it'll be under window, and you have to go down to clone source and check mark it, and it will add it to your list of available options, right? And then over here, I'm going to just fix this a little bit. But you see that quick adjustment tool did a really pretty decent job of fixing that and getting
Sure
rid
did.
of that rain, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Now up here, this is where my kind of anal retentiveness comes in, because I'm going to say I want this totally gone and I want the black here. So I'm going to go to a small brush, clone stamp, and I'm going to follow this lead straight up, right? And then I'm going to follow this lead up. I'm going to get rid of this by making that go away. I'm going to take this and extend that down. And I'm going to take this, and here's where I need to use that rotation. So
Mhm.
rotate this. I'm going to rotate this probably 6, maybe a little bit more, maybe even 9 degrees. So every time I clip, you see how it made it that 9
Mhm.
degrees.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So now I can do this as well. And then do this as a source. And I'm going to come out here and I don't have to worry about that 9 degree anymore. So I'm just going to go to 0. And I'm going to get rid of this. Then I'm going to take and go to here and I'm going to add some of that black for the back side of this split.
Looks like a
You
black.
gotta remember that I am working at this thing at this level, right? So there's no more halter on, there's
Uh-huh.
no more
Mhm.
lead line on that. All we've got is
Uh-huh.
the bridle, right?
Mhm.
Fun, wow, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Jackie, you learned that we have the ability to change not only the offset of our clone, but also we can change the offset here. We can also change the height and the
Uh-huh.
size. This is the XY position, so you can change the height and the size of just the X or just the Y or just the overall proportions.
Hmm.
And you can actually flip it from left to right. So you can take a source and reverse it so that it flips over here.
Mhm.
Doug, did you like any of these pictures with Becca?
Of yours? Yeah.
Well, of any. I mean, did you?
Oh, I didn't. None of the ones that I've seen are ones that I would. I mean, I sent some for Becca to use, but I did not. These are the ones that you sent me. You sent me some new ones today.
I did.
I didn't download those. Um, so
So just because she was new to horses or,
yeah, so she'd never been around horses before, so she was terrified. Now you got to think about the fact that the horse is a prey animal, so they're always concerned about being eaten, right? It doesn't matter how long they've lived in the barn, doesn't matter how long they've been on this earth. They're always like, "Holy shit, I could get eaten," right?
Mhm.
So when you have a predator, which is what they consider us, which is part of the reason that you have to create that bond, they have to trust you. They consider us a predator. And so when the predator is nervous, they go, "Holy shit, the predator's nervous," right? There's something here I'm not getting, right? I don't see it, but there's something in these trees. There's something that's going to kill my ass, right? And so they get nervous. And because of that nervousness, when Becca was nervous, um, Becca is nervous, and all of a sudden, Mira is like, "Oh, I have no idea what the hell is going on, but I don't like this at all." Um,
Mhm.
so one of the things that I think I've mentioned before, but one of the things that I love about this navigator is that it actually shows you my final crop, right? So is this I important? Is this I
No.
not important? Right? And so how much of this is important and how much is my I important? And or does my I need to be in a strong third position? So I hold shift and I hit O, And now I change this to bring my eye to the strongest Fibonacci position. And I say, oh, well, that actually kind of looks pretty cool, but maybe I need to do this. Maybe I need to just narrow this even a little bit more. So, you know, now I have this as my starting point. And I'm going to just do a little bit of this. I'm going to push some vibrancy. I'm going to push the blacks, and I'm going to add some contrast to it, right? I'm going to look at my overall color tone, and I kind of want to be probably right where the camera figured it was, right? But then I'm going to go to my adjustment brush, and I'm going to grab a smaller adjustment brush. Oops, I'm going to dehaze. I'm going to do this. I want to go to a smaller adjustment brush, and I want to do that. So I'm pushing the eye. I also want to take and saturate the eye, and I also want to sharpen the eye significantly. Yeah, I like it. I like it. The other thing you could do is that you can add a color to it. So I can come down here and say, let's see what happens if I add that touch of orange. And I added too much, but that's okay, because all I do is just come over here and decrease the saturation. So I always go high because of the color. This is 100% saturation across the top. My saturation decreases as I go to the bottom, but it's still the same RGB color, right? So I choose my color first and decided 100% whether I want that or whether I want red, or do I want, you know, where do I want that color? And so kind of maybe right in there, and then I reduced my saturation. And then just to check it, I turn this on and off.
Oh,
Right?
It's really nice.
So before and after.
Wow.
I like it.
Pops the
mhm.
eye. Uh-huh.
It's great.
Yep. So your image, Monica, you can do that now. This is the one we did last week. Magnolia. Super easy with this one, right? You know, crop it appropriately. I typically like to have them looking out of frame a little bit. And if you look over here, you see that that's stronger than this, right?
Say that again?
I want my horse to have room to look out of frame. So if you see
Yes.
this, you see they've got room. If I were to do this crop, it's too tight over here. It feels too tight.
Right, like she's falling off the.
Right. So all I'm going to do here is just increase the contrast. I'm going to push the whites some because the whites are going to help me to light that, but I'm going to pull my blacks down. And my shadows, I got to be careful with. I want to not push my shadows too much. Normally I like pushing my shadows, but in this particular case, I'm going to just add more contrast. I'm going to take and add some clarity and add a little bit of dehaze just to do that. I'm going to come down here to detail. I'm going to go to sharpen. I'm going to mask my sharpening quite a bit. I'm going to reduce that sharpening quite a bit too. It's a pretty sharp image. So that's all I really need. Then go back up here to my, my main layer. And I want to work with, I want to see where this shadows, what the shadows is actually doing. And I really want it down here because I'm a little too dark down here anyway. So what I'm going to do is take a radial brush, and I'm not going to invert it. I'm going to keep it to the outside of my horse. And I'm going to do one here, and I'm going to kind of place it up around my horse's head. And I may want to, if you hold Alt or Option, by the way, you can drag out just one side of your radial filter. And you see what I'm doing is just making that head a little more dramatic in the window, right? So what I did was darken everything down. I didn't want her chest competing with my head. So I could have done that with a gradient filter. I could have done it in a couple of different ways, but that kind of works, right? Then if you wanted to do anything else, it would be little dodging and burning on the face and things like that, right? So you could go to your brush tool, say, go to, say, for example, burn, and just kind of burn this down a little bit, burn this down, burn this shadow around his neck a little bit, up in here, nose, this little spot, this little spot. And then say new, come up and go to dodge. And I'm going to get this triangle of light right there. And hit the inside of that ear just a touch. And get that edge of his neck. Just cut through his mane. Two-minute
Beautiful.
edit.
Wow. Very dramatic.
Mhm.
Oh, you knew I'm a drama queen, Jackie, right?
Yeah. Love it.
Do you like the two over? The image two over from that?
This one.
Mhm.
You know, what I like about it is not necessarily this. What I love is this, right? I love the width of this horse, right? And this is one of the older Tennessee walkers who's just way too fat, right? You know.
And I just like the blurry one in the back too.
You know, if you like it, then great. You know, to me this is the standout point. But
Yes.
if I thought about this and I said, look, that was important to me, then I may take my auto mask and do something like this. Take the sharpness down, take my clarity and texture down, take my exposure down, or maybe take my exposure up in this case. And I'm going to get a real big brush. And I'm going to increase the feather on it. And I'm going to go back here like this. I'm going to go along the edge of my horse so that my auto mask makes that selection. Now here, this gives you a perfect example of what happens sometimes. You see those little tiny holes up in there? See, like up in here? That's because auto mask said, oh, you never touched that color. So just go over it, over here, and just, now just make certain that you don't get close to the horse, right? Because if you get close to the horse, it'll paint right over the horse again, right? Now, I know Monica's going, I hate the fact that it's brighter. What if I make it darker, right? So now I have this whole image just kind of going softer yet, right? There was before, there was after. So it's just taking any sharpness out of it, and even doing something like this, which is fun, is just add a color tone to it. I kind of like the yellow. I kind of like that. It's kind of the RC yellowy green back there, right? And
Doug, would you like it better if it was just the black horse and you?
Yeah, I mean, to me, the black horse stands on his own, right? That's why.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. the look of that face and that big fat body.
Yeah, right. But this is not bad either, just doing that a little bit. I think that my brush is messed up a little bit here on his back. So choose that brush, get a little bit smaller brush. Let's go down. Right here on his back, it did not select it. So it was changing, everything was changing, but that wasn't.
Ah,
So now when I take it down, you'll see that I'm missing just a little bit over in here. I could just go back to my auto mask with a little bit smaller brush and just kind of do this again.
Or would you just white out the whole background and just have,
Well, I could do that too. I mean, you know, now that I have it selected, and basically when you do masking in Lightroom, it's like doing a selection. So now I could simply just do this, right?
I like that too. I like that better.
You know, I can do that. I can come up in here. I can take this color off of it and say, let's just take that color off of that, you know, that background. Refine this up a little bit better, and you know, that could be interesting in and of itself, right? I still like getting that yellow back there.
Jackie, do you like that?
I think I liked it darker better.
So
That front horse is amazing.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
he's one of the older horses in her barn.
Yeah, I love his eyes. I love how his nose is, his wrinkles around his body there.
Yep.
Good.
So, yeah, I mean, once you've made this selection, that's the beauty of Lightroom is, you know, you can literally, and I often will push things to the limit to see what my selection looks like, right? And help to refine my selection. And then once my selection is really refined the way I want it, then it's easy for me to be able to say, okay, let's just, now I can adjust ad nauseum, right? You know, do I want that? Do I want anywhere in between? I personally kind of like something more in this range.
Yeah, I like that.
And I like that kind of almost a deserty type feel to that brush. But then what I got to do up here is go to my basic panel, and I need to warm the whole image up so that my horse doesn't go blue.
Mm.
And even maybe adjust my tint just a touch.
Would you do anything to the front horse?
No, other than maybe sharpening and you know things like that. I mean, I do a little dodging and burning here and there, but the front horse is pretty interesting on his own, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, I hope you enjoyed the entire workshop and experience.
I wouldn't mind doing it again.
You know, I
Do we have
Every
one
time-
more class coming or not? Or are we
no, this is it.
just two
um,
classes? Okay.
Yeah, well, we had the first class there, and then we missed Saturday and Sunday because we left
Okay.
early, right? Sunday because we left early, and Saturday because we didn't get back from Rick's until late. but you know, you got a lot out of it, right?
Oh my God, I had so much fun.
You doing it next year, Monica?
The horses,
Mm-hmm.
we'll see.
Yeah, it's you know, and every year is a little different. I go to some different farms. You know, this year I added Tim's on there. I added Rick's on there. You know, next year I plan on putting a 100 jumper in there, so we would do jumps. But every
I'm
year,
I was disappointed actually with a lot of my pictures from Rick's. But that's a skill thing.
That's what
Some
I'm
of it
thinking
was-
too, that I'd like to do it again, the whole thing again, to get, you know, first year was more like getting used to it a little bit. Now I kind of know more what I need to improve on for next year.
right?
Right, I need to be able to switch focal length faster.
Okay.
That when this fabulous big stallion was really close to me, I didn't get a quarter of it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Not take so
It's-
many pictures really far away.
yeah.
Right, that's what I noticed too. I had so many really far away.
And then, you know, the ones with the barn in the background with, it was so, some of them, the fences really mess them up.
Hmm.
So great with the fences.
Hey, I love this shot.
This one?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
Oh,
I think
it is?
I think it's pretty sweet, and yeah, I think this whole thing kind of works. I mean, you know, again, would I do a couple more things? Maybe, you know, I'm a big one for dodging and burning, so you know, for me, it's like, right, just let's just take my flow down here because my flow is going to kill me.
And I like the second horse in there better than having it without it. I mean, it's kind of like abstract, but yet, I mean, there's certainly enough information to tell it's a horse.
Right.
That's what, I liked it. I like it too.
Yep.
Now, would she like this picture?
Oh, I'm sure she would. Yeah, I'm sure she would. Just because she didn't bring him in. This is, I think, let me just get this right. I think this is Dixie. I still got my list here on my table. So I think this is Dixie. And, you know, Dixie's 26, right? So she's not riding Dixie anymore. She's just letting Dixie enjoy life, right?